Blazemost here. Today we're going to be doing, we're going to be learning how to open a little bit more effectively with ZvP openers. The reason why I did this was pretty much over, within about 12 hours of our last tournament, basically I got smashed. And although what I wanted to do was I wanted to actually take something out of it. So I think that's more important than basically saying, oh man, I suck, I should have tried something different, blah, blah, blah. And what actually occurred was I watched somebody that played and they opened up to the point where it was like super greedy. Like, I've watched a lot of professional matches and I've seen a lot of people who they get about to like 55 drones and basically attacks right on them. And a lot of times I think that it's like crazy because whenever I get into my games, I usually get to about 52 drones average, and then I'm basically ready to start building units. But that's not actually the right way to do it. There's actually a better way, and that's what I'm going to explain today. I guess before I actually start, I open up kind of differently. With my hatchery, I don't necessarily open up on the natural. I open up on the third, and we're going to go over how I used to open up before I watched the game, which I basically learned from instead of basically just, whatever. And then I'm going to show a difference in, my application of utilizing what I just learned. And that's what this replay's for. So before I begin, I'm going to show an example of how I would have opened if this was like, 2 to 3 days ago. And, I have no idea how to open and whatnot. I think I have it in here. Yeah, there it is. There's going to be two things we're going to look at, and I have it right here so I know what I'm talking about. And I'm going to show the numerics behind why I'm doing this. I need this. Okay, so we see protoss is on the left side, close positions. Basically the best thing you'd be able to identify is this, so there's still a decent chance to be able to hold this off. What's going to be happening here is protoss is going to forge fast expand, and I'm going to open 3Hatch. I'm going to put my hatchery right here, and the reason why I do that is because this probe is guaranteed to be right here. So any amount of time that I spend right here is basically minerals lost. The drone that comes right here, by the time it makes the decision to go right here in this direction, it's already basically wasting time not going over here and basically saying, hey, this is guaranteed, I'm going to take this instead. So every about like right here, it's basically the same method as saying he's right here. Every 1 to 2 seconds or whatever he's wasting his time microing to be able to kill this probe, he's basically losing minerals, and then on top of that, however long it takes to actually start this, which is compared to the start time of this, that could be anywhere from about 10 to 15 seconds. So in association with that, I'm going to be 13 pulling, but I'm also going to be hatching at 15. Now we're going to do something different on the second replay, but I'm just going to show the difference between why I did what I did on the key factors of what we're going over. So this Ling's denying this. This makes this expansion possible. There's no pylon here because if he puts on a pylon, it's a waste because this is already here. This adds a bit of perception. He assumes that I'm going to go right here, but instead he doesn't know that I'm going right here, so this is more guaranteed. We're going to ignore whatever's going on here, because this is actually more of a nuisance for me than it is a nuisance for him, so we're not going to pay attention to whatever happens over here. We're going to pretend like these don't exist. That's plural. What we're really going to focus on is this. Now, with Queen Energy, it's always regenerating, so regardless if you have 25 energy, 50 energy, or whatever, you should be, in theory, you should pretty much be always using it. But we're not, we're not focusing on our queens that much. We'll focus on them whenever it's time to inject, but we won't necessarily say to ourselves, whenever I hit 50 energy, I'm going to move this guy right here and, put this right here. So even though there's a queen out here and this is being used effectively, this is not being used effectively. And the reason is because it's being in build time right now. It has 50 seconds to build. That basically equates to 1 inject, which overall means 4 larvae, because it takes 40 seconds to make one. So the entire time this is sitting here, I'm going to lose about 45 seconds of larva time. So now this queen's out, but instead I actually put a tumor right here. So that means it's going to be another 40 seconds that it's actually going to be not injected. So this is 8 larvae right here that I've losted, which could have been drones, which means I could have been at 37 right now. Not realistically if I had the money to do, but we're just going to basically push it back even more. So even after the second tumor, I'm basically at, 35 because I'm terrible at this game. So this one's been injected successfully, but this one's not. Now we've created a secondary problem. These aren't even in sync. So this one's sitting here and this one's not. And then this one's being built. So the same thing's going on right here. I'm losing another 40 seconds because this one's actually, still being in creation. So this basically adds up to a minute 20, which gets added another 40 seconds because this gets created. Now what I noticed is, before I add up all the minutes or whatever you want to call it, this tumor is required, whereas this one's not required. This one could be created earlier, which means I could have, bounced it up here and then bounced it right here, and it would have still been the same application as saying, hey, I was right here doing this tumor. Because this is going to reach right here, and this is going to be relatively useless. So this 25 energy is pointless. Because this will basically do the same thing. Out of all this time put together, and I calculated it preemptively, it's actually 2 minutes and 45 seconds, because this spends about two possible injects, which is basically a minute 20, and this spends 2 possible injects, which is a minute 20 also. And then you have to factor in how much time I, was required to say, hey, I should do an inject. So we're going to pause right here. Now when I say it's 2 minutes and 40 seconds, it's because right here I have, this is halfway done, and I have 32 energy. In theory, this should be 12 energy. 12, 13, 14-ish or whatever. So basically I have 1 full inject on this queen right now. There's no hatchery right here right now because I can't afford it because I have 51 drones. I'm in actually build mode right now, and it's 8:52, which means in about a minute 40 or a minute 50, protoss is about to push because he's got his first immortal out, which means his second's about to come out, and he's going to push at that point. Plus he's got gates right here. So if we were scouting at 7:30-ish, we would know this is a robo build, and if we have our overlord right here, it's 8:52. He hasn't expanded yet, which means he's going to be doing an all-in. All this stuff isn't going to be on a cheat sheet. You have to figure this out on your own. There's 3 possible expand timings. There's 7:30, there's 8:30, and then there's anything beyond 9. Anything beyond 9 means he's doing an all-in. So that's why I'm in build mode right now, because I should be building prepare for this counterattack. It doesn't necessarily mean if I win or lose this match. What we're looking at is that I have 22 energy here, which this one looks pretty decent. And I also have 32 energy here. In fact, this one isn't even used. So, which basically means I've lost about 20 larvae right now. Or whatever half that is. We'll just pretend like that's 2, because 12 energy is half of 25. So right now I could have had, if I would have told myself, the 2 injects that I lost out of here, the 2 injects I lost out of here, and then the half inject out of here, I could have said to myself, well, I could have had 8, 16, 18 more larvae, which means in theory I could have had, at the same time of what I have right now, about 65 drones. That would have been way better than actually, 51. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to show the steps to actually make this more possible. So this is like really important stuff, because I just figured this out and I was like, hey, I never opened like this. I've been playing for a long time, and all of a sudden I found out a different way to do this. And this is actually something I'm going to start using in my games, because the probability of actually getting 2-gated or successfully cannon rushed, because the way I'm going to open up is still going to be 14 pull. It's just I'm going to spend a lot less time messing around with my opponent, because we're going to pretend like he's forge fast expanding. Obviously right here you don't see anything. We're going to assume he's actually going to forge a fast expand, and if I can get 2 lings in here, then it's only because of luck. I'm not going to say luck, but I'm going to say it's because their build order failed. There's a 10% chance that you'll actually be able to be successful with the 13 pull, and there's probably about a 1% chance you'll be successful with the 14 pull. But that's not what's important. If I spend time basically messing around with my links in here, scouting, at most I will probably just delay their build, and I'll still be able to say to myself, you know, I delayed their build 30 seconds, but this is going to give me the same application regardless if I get this in here or not, because I'm going to do the same thing with this right here. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to build all 3 my queens out of my initial hatchery. This may seem stupid because this is way down here, and this is basically going to be done soon. But if we look, once this gets done, this is going to inject, and it's going to spend about 40... We're going to give my queens in a spawn. Alright, so this is going to spend 40 seconds in inject mode right now. That's what's important. Excuse me. So within the 40 seconds, you can tell by the gray bar, I'm going to develop a secondary queen. The secondary queen, once it spawns, it'll be able to replace the amount of time this one's going to spend moving into another direction, which is what I'm going to do after I inject. Now I'm not going to put creep right here, because if I do that, then this is not going to be injected, and then I'm going to be subtracting 4 larvae off of whatever my total larva is. My total larva is going to be the amount of units, or drones, and possible other units, or attacking movements I have by 8:30. That's what's important in this case. So I'm going to move this all the way down here. And if I time it correctly, I should have about 30 energy when I reach right here. And this will be complete. But the difference is, if I start building a queen right here, and I spend 50 seconds building a queen out of this hatchery, then this 50 seconds basically is I'm not going to have any injects coming out of this. So the total time we're actually going to lose on injects in here is however long. Well, because I know I'm going to put a creep tumor down. I have to. If this has no creep tumor and this has no creep tumor, I'm going to get right here. I'm going to lose because of this choke. Or I'm going to lose because of this choke. Because he's basically going to be right here. Force field, warp in, and then push. That's what's going to happen. So it's important that I have enough creep so I can actually engage right here. So that's why we're actually doing creep. We're not just doing creep because I feel like, you know, saying that or whatever. I'm not going to build a 4th queen and say, I need a creep all the way over here or something like that. The whole point of it is to defend it in a better spot than just right here. And I'm pretty sure it has the same application to every other map. Besides that, we're going to make it so that it's going to go right here. So we're going to build our second, and what it's going to do is the same thing. It's going to focus on here, only this one's going to be a lot more solid in actually reaching this. So we're going to speed this up a little bit, because this takes forever. Alright, so right here, I guess pretty legit. Right now he has 37 energy, he's going to consume 25. This is going to be more instantaneous because if I build a queen out of here, I'm spending, I don't know how long it takes to regen 25 energy, I think it's 40. I'm going to spend 90 seconds doing the same thing that I'm doing right now. It'll be 50 seconds to produce, and then it'll be pretty instant that this will occur, and then it'll also regen slowly. So what I did was, I bought myself 12 energy. That's what's going on right now. So in theory, I just bought myself 2 larvae for doing
User this. Joined your channel.
Hi. Or hi.
Hey. When you're done with your explanation and gameplay, stop the VOD and I can put it on YouTube.
Okay.
How long do you think it's going to be?
I'm going to show a replay of me actually doing this, and I'm going to show the difference between both my first game and my second game.
Okay, just try to keep it under an hour.
Okay.
Gracias.
Yep. So once I reach right here, this will be done, and this energy will reach 25. So what I did right here was, this queen that would have normally been built is actually already in position. So it's going to have 25 energy, and it's already going to do an inject. So in the previous replay, I basically said to myself, I'll build a queen, and I'll lose 4 larvae, and then, you know, I'll be behind. Now, I'm only saying I'm going to be behind is because I'm spending more time relying on this when I could be relying on this. I haven't taken my gases yet, so therefore I'm not going to have to be concerned about, building a lair. It's going to be, ready to go right here instead of ready to go whenever the hatchery is produced. So I have 25 energy on this. I'm going to inject both of these at the same time. And this one just came out, so I'm in sync with this. This is basically in position right here. So now once we get to this point, we're not really relying on this. This is going to get pushed out, I'm pretty sure. You're going to want to sync your queens. And I think this is important because a lot of players get under the tendency where they have 3 different queens, and this is what normally happens because this is a typical build order. But they don't, inject at the same time. They inject this one right here, they inject this one right here, and eventually, whenever I have lings out here like I do right now, I'll have other things, stupid stuff that happens out here, and I'll be like, okay, I'm more focused on this, and then, oh man, my inject thing came up or whatever, and then you forget about it, and then eventually it gets to the point where 5-10 minutes down later in the game, you're like, oh man, I'm behind by like 30-40 energy, kind of like the replay I just went over where I'm behind over time and I eventually lose drones because of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to wait for this one to get to 25 before we start a chain. We know this is the key indicator because this one's always going to be injecting, and then we're going to delay these two. We're not going to delay them basically to say, I'm going to do a creep tumor instead. We're going to make it so that at 6 minutes when I'm scouting basically and nothing's really going on, he's probably getting +1 right here or something stupid. You're basically going to sync all these 3 together. So we're waiting for 25 at this point. So now I'm injecting all... Ooh, I get so many... So at this point I basically just... I injected all 3, and now I have 8 energy left over, and now I have 11 energy left over. Under a perfect scenario, that's probably like 3 larvae, and the difference is, in my last game, like I was explaining, I wasted 2 minutes and 40 seconds with larva injects, which is basically 18 larvae. So I just gained myself 16 larvae. In my last replay, I had 51 drones by the time 8:30 hit. So we're going to go right to 8:30 at this point. So at this point I have 6 drones in production, and I also have 58 currently. I'm taking both of my gases, and I'm also putting down really typical tech. I'm putting down +1 Kara because it's basically going to defend against or ling aggression. And I'm also have decent creep spread. If I would have used this one and I would have creeped right here, I would have got the same application as if this was going out right here. So at most I probably lose like 1 to 2 seconds worth of move speed. Plus I'm not going to engage right here because it's not logical. So I gained about, once I'm done because I'm basically spamming units at this point, I gained about 13 units, and I also gained about, I have like 6 larvae right now, and once all these are done, I'm basically going to gain another 20 larvae. So I'll be able to get out about 30 to 40 lings. Right around this time, I pretty much had, I think it was like 12 lings or something like that. I basically produced 12 lings, and it was like 9 minutes and 30 seconds. So what the difference is, I'm going to be able to produce 14, 24, 26 lings, and I'm basically already at 9:30, and I already have 42 lings. So not only do I have more larvae, but I also have more drones, so I'm able to supplement this attack much better than, whenever I did it originally. I'm getting ling speed, I'm getting +1 carapace, and at this point, his push, which I think was like 2 immortals, 6 sentries, and a stalker, will basically get countered by, which hit about 10:30. Will basically get countered by 54 lings and 8 roaches. I'm still producing roaches because if I remember I spam it, yeah. I built 11 roaches, so they'll be right here. So by the time the actual push hits at 10:30, I'll have +1 carapace, and I'll also have a better economy than what I did in my last game. So now I'm going to show an example where it actually comes into effect. This is like my first game doing this. Whoops. Alright, so I scout pretty much because I have no idea where he was, but then as soon as I see the forge, I'm just basically not going to mess around because I need as much money from it as possible. So I'm opening up 14 pool. I'm going to open up my hatch right here, so that way I don't have to deal with a probe, and then I'm going to open up right here. He's pretty much doing the same build as he would do every other game. The only difference is I'm basically moving my queen over here. It'll be done. It's a little bit delayed because I'm a person. So put my creep tumor down. This is basically over here. I move this one right here, building another queen. This is extremely close. It'll probably be like 20. There you go. So now I have 25 over here, and I have 25 over here. And then this queen's going to get created. I actually want to add this to the fun. He's going to be opening Stargate. So what I'm going to need is I'm going to need spores. Now I shouldn't necessarily immediately put down spores, but what you'll notice is I'll have a lot more ready to prepare for such an attack because of the way I'm opening up now. I have another 10 drones, which is basically another 4 drones potentially on top of what I would originally have, which would probably be around 45. So at this point I'm going to wait for this, I think. Yeah, alright, so I've already synced. It's pretty close to each other, but I'm probably going to make it a little bit better because I'm waiting right here. So then I get this one. Well, it's eventually going to sync. These two are synced right now. Okay, now they're synced. I already have 49. I see that it's a Stargate tech, so it doesn't look like I'm just figuring out my own. I'm going to put down +1 carapace because I know that his attack is vulnerable to a ground wave. I'm putting down spores. So right now, including all this extra drones that I have, I'm also putting down spores. I have like almost 3 spores right now. So if I were to look at my count right now, and I have 55 drones, last game I had, what was it, like 68 or something? I have 3 spores right here, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which means in theory I could have had 63 drones right now if he didn't open Stargate. And I still have the same thing like would have had any game. This is by no means opening greedy, this is just using your queens more effectively to be able to defend your base better, because if I didn't have this, I would probably have 2 spores right here, 2 spores right here, and 2 spores right here at a minimum. This is vulnerable to a void ray attack, and this side is open to a void ray attack. So what I'm doing is actually a lot easier to manage because I'm still able to defend against oracles because I have 2 spores in my base, and I also position my queens correctly. So I know for a fact that he's doing a wonky timing because he's not opening up Nexus. I'm not saying he's a bad player or anything. But now I'm actually able to develop and defend at the same time. So I'm pretty much going to do the same build I did during that replay, except on build links. Only difference is it's required for me to build links because he opened Stargate. There's no way he can do any damage because I have all this set up. This is probably going to be really silly. This is a lot too, considering it's 4. So now I'm able to push with a lot of lings. On top of that, I'm also getting +1. And now I basically have a manageable attack force. he opens Stargate and it's doing 0 damage because of the way I set up. Now, on top of that, I have my creep spread already over here. If I would have had creep spread coming from this direction, it probably would have reached like right here, and that's about it. I probably would have been able to excessively basically go in this direction, but so yeah. This is why I'm going to start opening up 3 queens on my main hatchery now. In fact, I'll probably do it with my ZVZs because it'll be the same thing. I'll basically have a hatchery right here, and I want to get this hatchery out ASAP, and this will probably just give me another 4 larvae. I'm not going to theorycraft ZVZ more so than a ZvP because a ZvP you're guaranteed to open up 3Hatch, so it's only logical for me to actually do a ZvP queen opening. As much as I told myself, you know, I should have done it with something else, but... So I'm only floating like 25 energy right now, which I think I eventually catch. Yeah, I catch. So I'm like 17, I'm like half an inject behind, and that's about it. So it's not like, you know, it's 12 minutes and I'm like floating like 70 or 80 energy. I know what's going on, I'm doing all this crazy stuff, catching him off guard or whatever. But at the same time, I'm actually not floating that much energy. That's what's important. So, yeah. This is why I highly recommend doing this. I highly recommend trying to find a way to get all your queens together so that way you'll actually be able to increase your macro instead of relying on, you know, just staring at a button.